We have special guests today at the MuHen Brewing Company. Jimmy and Debbie Campbell are joining us today at the MuHen Brewing Company to talk about a part of the history of Wildwood and part of the history of our MuHen Brewing Company. Jimmy's grandfather, John Kelly, as well, that we're going to talk about today, was the head engineer and the operator of our MuHen Train. Debbie and Jimmy, welcome to MuHen again. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here.
Thank you.
What's your connection with the MuHen Train and your grandfather? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Well, actually, my brother told me a story before he passed away about riding in the locomotive with my grandfather from Philadelphia to the island here. And he told me about how when they came across the marshes, how the train was slipping and sliding. It was all over the place. He said the sparks were flying. He said he almost had a little problem wetting in his pants. So then later on, I read a story in the local Sun magazine, and it's talking about the MudHen, and the description that he gave me about coming across the marshes was almost the same thing that was written in the newspaper. So it was like, wait a minute, I got to talk to somebody at MudHen, and that's how I connected with you to tell the story that my brother told me, and reading the story in the magazine and putting two and two together, and it's like, Grandpa was the man who ran the MudHen.
Wow.
I wonder how many times he made that trip. Because he was making that trip because I believe once they came onto the island and dropped off passengers, they would go to Cold Spring where the toll bridge is, right at Cape May, and they would load fish up that they would take back to Philadelphia.
Do you remember what was the route of the old MuHen Train? What was the route that passengers were coming to Wildwood from, like to North Wildwood, or was it from the other side?
I think it was like there's a bridge at West Wildwood that's been falling in the water for many, many years. I believe that that's probably the route that they came in, West Wildwood. They would cross over at West Wildwood into like North Wildwood, and I know the train ran down Jersey Avenue till it got to Rambler, and then it made a little dog leg there, and then it ran along Sunset Lake, and then it went through the marshes over to the Cold Spring Fish House.
Oh wow, that's great. How was it growing up back in Wildwood? You said you spent a lot of time back surfing with Brandon and Robin's dad, Michael, as well,
Yeah,
down in Wildwood.
Michael.
How was it
Yeah.
back in the days down here?
It was a much better time. It was a great place to grow up.
Family oriented.
Oh, very family oriented. I was a lifeguard on the beach with Buddy Johnson, who's now, they call him the captain or something. And he's been on the beach for, that was 1970, and he's still on the beach. I get to see him every summer. I get to talk to him.
Debbie, what do you remember from your days back in the Wildwoods?
Well, I came on the scene when he was a lifeguard on the beach, so that's what I remember most. First came to MudHen was that there were just not adults here, like there were families, and how outside that there's games for the kids to play, and families could come and feel comfortable bringing their kids here. It really is,
Yeah.
It encourages people to bring their families. I think
That's
You know,
amazing.
and being in the restaurant business, I stood at the door to the kitchen, and I was watching, and it would open up. I'd look down the line, I'm like, oh wow, look at that, that's really cool. So one of the girls, I guess in charge, she saw me and she's like, well, can I help you? I said, no, I just want to look in the kitchen. She went over, propped the door open, held the door open so I could look down the line and take a good look at the kitchen.
Wow.
Really cool. I mean, that setup is really, I'd really
Thank
like
you
to
very
take
much.
a real walk through it. And it was so busy. And one thing about here is we ordered food like that.
It is so fast.
It's like, where did it come from? Speedy
Very
delivery.
fast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you think in the future MudHen will be like one of the landmarks, like the MudHen Train was back in the
It
days?
is. It already is. You come down Rio Grande Avenue over the bridge, what do you see? MudHen. I mean, it's here. It's already here.
Speaking about your grandfather, John, what are your memories of your grandfather and the stories you can share with us about
He was
your
a true
grandfather?
gentleman. He always had, he would, after supper, him and my grandmother, they would go out for a stroll. He'd have a tie, a suit jacket, he would have his hat, he would tip his hat to the women, you know. He always walked on the,
He's a true gentleman.
he was a true gentleman. And he taught us, as kids, it's like when you're walking down the street with your mother, you always walk on the curbside. Why, Pop? Because if a car comes down the street and there's a puddle and hits the puddle, you're going to get wet, not your mother. I mean, things like that. He was a true gentleman. And he was I only heard that my grandfather raised his voice one time to yell at my grandmother about something. Only one time he raised his voice. Other than that, he was a soft-spoken gentleman.
Wonderful. You mentioned that there's a couple of places in Wildwood that there's some old pictures and old photos of the train as well that can be seen and found.
Yes, at the Boyer Museum on Pacific Avenue.
Here we have an old photo of John Keeley as well. We love the little part of the history that can be seen as well. So, how does it make you feel that your grandfather is going to be a part of the future, and he's a part of the history in Wildwood, and then one of the beers was named after the train that he was operating?
One word, awesome. I think it's awesome.
Jimmy and Debbie, it was a pleasure having you guys here at the MuHen Brewing Company. Thank you for sharing all the stories from your family.
Thank you for having us.
It was a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Oh,